You're listening to Rockin' Sexy Uncensored, bringing you the cutting edge of the entertainment world weekly, hosted by Lynn.
Woohoo! All right, happy Thursday, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Rockin' Sexy Uncensored. We are broadcasting on ubngo.com, and we are live streaming on our blog tonight at rockinsexyuncensored.com. I'm your host, Lynn, and it's my pleasure to be here with you guys tonight. Joining me in the co-host seat tonight is Joe Williamson, management.
Thank you so much. Always a pleasure to be here, and you look absolutely stunning as always.
Thank you. Excited to be in the house tonight, guys, and we have an exciting show set up for you. RNSU works overtime to bring you cutting-edge talent from the music and entertainment worlds, and tonight, folks, is no exception. Coming up a little bit later in our show, we are going to have a pioneer of the UK punk rock movement, the Automatics, share the roster with other legendary punk rock bands of the day, like the Sex Pistols and the Damned. And they all kind of came out of this one famous venue, the UK Marquee Club. Their first hit single, When the Tanks Roll Over Poland Again, you've just got a taste of, was released in 1978. And coming up in just a little while, we are going to have legendary frontman for the Automatics, Mr. David Philp. So stay tuned. How you doing tonight, Joe?
Hey, every time I see you is awesome. I'm doing awesome.
Thank you, Joe. That's why I can't be on the show. This is going to be fun. I can't wait. And I love punk rock. I'm from Orange County, and I grew up in the era of the punk rock movement, and it is like my music, and I am just really excited about who we're going to have on the show tonight. And I have to tell you a little secret, though. You know, the Automatics are awesome. The music is awesome. David Philp is somebody that I know, and he's a friend, and he's just an amazing human being, and I can't wait for you guys to meet him.
Me too. I'm super excited. I've been a big fan for a long time. The Automatics is one of my favorite bands of all time, and so I'm super excited.
I saw you put up a great post on your, am I allowed to say it? On his Facebook page. And apparently now that with the evolution of music and everything else technologically in the world, Joe has now managed to become like the Facebook story master. And tonight he came up with a really cool effect for the Automatics because he loves the band so much. And tell him what you did, Joe.
Yeah, I put up the picture, you know, the advertisement and of the Automatics in your show tonight. And then I also put on this song. You can put songs on the background of one of their most famous songs. One of the famous punk rock songs of all time. It's one of my favorites. Of when
the tanks roll over Poland again.
Yes.
Why are you Polish?
No.
Well, you can tell me. Are you?
No, I'm 100% Scottish, or like 90% Scottish and a little bit English.
We're going to talk to David about what that song is about, because it has to do with war, and he also recently came out with another song about the ravages of war in Ukraine, and it is amazing. And I was so excited to have him on the show, is going over all of the music and the details, and then at the last minute he sent me something that I had not yet seen until last night, and I love it. I can't wait for the audience to share it with us. So stay tuned, guys. We have a really exciting show planned for you, and you're really, really going to love it. So, rumor has it, Joe, and I can't believe it. I'm furious. I'm offended. Well, not offended, but I can't believe it. Do you know they just shot a new Barbie movie?
Yes, I've heard about that.
And they didn't even call me.
They should have. I don't know what they were thinking.
They didn't call me. Of all people, everybody always says that I'm like a giant Barbie.
I agree 100%. I don't know what they was thinking. You know, they should have. You would have been perfect for the role.
Right?
Yeah.
But guess what? If you're going to lose out to somebody, Margot Robbie is like, right? Can we get a hand for Margot Robbie in the new Barbie movie? Here she is, guys. What do you guys think?
I think she's stunning and she's going to be great in the movie, but I still say you would have been better.
Oh, thank you. I don't know about that, but I'm going to tell you guys, Margot Robbie is out in the new Barbie movie, and one thing that came to mind immediately was the Quentin Tarantino movie that they did, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which I loved, and I just fell in love with her when she played Sharon Tate in that movie, and just complete next level in her acting. I was impressed. And so I just want to wish her good luck on the new movie. And what do you think about it?
I think it'll be good. I have a question, though. What do you think of their choice for Ken, Ryan Gosling?
I don't know. I'd have to get him on the show, and we'd have to rate him.
Sounds good.
We'd also have to, guess what? Joe would want to know the same question. How does he rate as a kisser?
People want to know. We got to find out these
Did you kiss
things.
him in the movie?
Yeah, I imagine they do kiss quite a bit. And then Will Ferrell, he's also in the film as well.
He is?
Yeah.
So which one's better looking? Whoa!
I mentioned Ryan Gosling.
And who is Ryan?
There he is.
Well, Ryan, darling, he looks like, I thought I was looking at Brad Pitt for a second, right? Brad Pitt would have been another great choice.
So what do you think of Ryan Gosling? Were you a Barbie girl, or were you more of a Care
Bear?
Bear?
Are those really his abs? Are they his abs?
I don't know. They look like implants.
They do?
No, I'm
no,
joking.
They don't have ab implants. If they did, I would have some. Trust me. If you could just go out and get implants on your abs, then I would definitely have them.
So was you a Barbie girl? Or was you more of a Care Bears or Cabbage Patch Kid girl? Or
Cabbage Patch? When? Now?
When you was a kid.
When I was a kid?
Yeah.
I was a Barbie. I was more of a Barbie. You know what the truth is? When all the other girls were playing with Barbies, I was rocking my Joan Jett albums, and I was doing my thing. I was a completely another level. And I've always embraced that, especially now in my older years. Anyway, guess what, guys? The time is now. We are super excited to have him in the house. Joining us now in the studio via Zoom, a pioneer of the UK punk rock movement, the Automatics. They shared the roster with other popular punk bands of the day, like the Sex Pistols and the Damned, at London's famous music venue, the Marquee Club. When the Tanks Roll Over Poland Again, Joe's favorite song of all time, which he was just telling you about, was released in 1978. Since then, British punk rock has made its way to Japan, around the world, and back, and the man with his finger on the pulse of it all is with us here tonight to talk about the history of punk rock, the Automatics' legendary vocalist. We are honored to have him. David Philp is with us tonight. Hi, David.
Hey, David.
Hi. Amber, thank you for inviting me aboard. And yes, what would you like to know about the history of punk rock?
The history of punk rock, we would love to talk about. But David, first of all, we want to talk about you and the Automatics. And gosh, it is so good to have you in the house. You know, Joe is a huge fan, and I didn't even know this until I picked him up. He picked me up tonight to come and do the show, and he had done this great post on Facebook using your song When the Tanks Roll Over Poland Again. And he said, look at this. It turns out it's one of my favorite songs. And I said, you got to tell David this when he's on the show. Please meet our co-host tonight, David Philp. This is Joe Williamson.
Thank you.
Joe Williams. You're a sound man with good taste in punk rock.
Good taste in old school punk rock, right?
Old school. Well, actually, you know, the Independent magazine just put it in their top 10 all-time punk anthems. So I figured I'll take it.
I believe that, because when it hit the charts in 1978, it was to rave reviews, and you guys were a relatively just group of kids who then just kind of had this hit song, right? Here they
Yeah,
are,
and-
guys. By the way, for the audience out there, this is David and the band, the original lineup with the Automatics when about
there's
this
Barbie,
time.
there's Ricky, there's me in the lightning stripe shirt, and Wally Haycon.
So, David, give us some history on the Automatics and how you originated and why you chose punk rock over good old rock and roll of the day, and what drew you in the direction of punk versus, let's say, what else was going on? Jimi Hendrix and all these other bands, right?
Well, I always liked, Gene Vincent, and and I think that the Automatics owed more to Gene Vincent than they did to maybe a lot of the other bands that were around at the time. I mean, we didn't think of ourselves as particularly, punk. We didn't have that look. We had the short hair, we had the leather jackets. We didn't have, the Vivienne Westwood ripped T-shirt kind of thing. But it was a time when everybody was very bored of all the recycled acts, Elton John, Paul McCartney, Rolling Stones, and and all the very polished Californian acts like the Eagles, who were great, Loggins and Messina, who weren't, and and just all that very polished Californian music. So it was like going back, and we couldn't reach to that. We couldn't get to that, but we could get to the pub. And so, there were bands like, the first one I think was the Pink Fairies, and I rented my apartment off one of the guys from the Pink Fairies, the guitarist, and they were buddies with Eddie and the Hot Rods, which were kind of the next big band.
I remember them.
And I shared my apartment with this young engineer who was Steve Lillywhite. And I started recording with him at Phonogram on Dead Time, because in those days there was no home recording. You needed the beatification of some fat cat in a corner office to
be able to record at all,
to
right?
be able to record at all,
right?
Yeah. So, and Steve's other band was a band called Tiger Lily, who changed their name to Ultravox. And so Ultravox, the Automatics, Steve Lillywhite, and Eddie and the Hot Rods, we all ended up at Island together, Island Records. And, that was kind of an interesting time, because very few of the punk bands had, that they were doing one-off singles at Chiswick Records, at Stiff Records. This was kind of a bit of a different deal. So, we were around guys like Bob Marley. And
well, that's like the opposite end of the music spectrum from punk rock, right? Bob
yeah.
Marley.
Yeah. Those guys could really play. I mean, nobody. I was in the studio, Basing Street, when they were doing Kaya, and they all sit around. There's nothing happening until the man gets there.
Right.
And then everybody gets to take one hand out of this box of ganja, and they'd all go into their little corners and they'd roll these conical joints and get down on their haunches and tie one on, and then the instruments would come out.
Right. And they were all about the marijuana movement, and their music was all based on that with Bob Marley, right? You're talking about Bob Marley?
Yeah. And one time I was talking with the bass player, and I said, what's the thing with reggae? And he says, with the reggae bass line, he says, you walk a little bit and then you turn around and you look and you walk a little bit more. And I always thought that's such a great way of, explaining reggae bass lines.
I think that's what's happening with traffic in LA today is they legalized marijuana and now everybody's like drives a little bit and then they turn around and they get on their phone at the light and then they go and drive a little bit. It's just the same thing. So that is so funny.
Pretty much is.
So all music carries a message, David. What was the automatics back in the day to the world and your fans and followers? And how has it evolved through the years, do you think? And how is it different today?
Well, in those days, we were playing the Marquee Club and it was just mayhem. There was just this huge ignition from the first downbeat. And, all these kids would just be flying through the air, slamming each other, spitting, and it was a very violent scene. But the sweat would come off them and it would go up to the ceiling and then it'd cool. And then it started raining in the club.
How did it do that?
I know, because they're all fairly enclosed spaces, basement, but I've never seen it rain in a club. And I never saw it again until I went to Japan in 2000. And it was the same there. All these kids, there's just this, they're all just letting off this wild excess of energy. And they had the mosh pit. They had the mosh pit in front of the stage back then, and it could get really wild in those mosh pits. People didn't actually hit each other, but with their bodies and the movement and everything, it would become very, very. I happen to love it, but.
I've never done that actually.
In London,
when I was a kid, we used to jump. I would literally jump over the table and dive right into the mosh pit and just fearless, completely fearless. And that was the whole thing. I just loved that whole energy,
Yeah. And like sometimes you get too close and somebody pull you into the crowd. And that was always a very interesting experience. They were all very, very hands-on in those days.
So how quickly when the Tanks roll over Poland again, that went right up the charts. Like it was like a immediate kind of put you guys on the map, right?
Yeah, it did. But there was so much else going on at the time. I wasn't really paying attention because I always thought there were going to be new and greater glories just around the corner. And as it happened, there wasn't.
Right.
But we played Reading Festival that year, which is it's kind of scary. You go out and you've been playing all these clubs, and suddenly there's this big stage, and you walk out, and there's people as far as the eye can see, hundreds of thousands, and that was an experience. And then
you played that what was it, a festival? It was a festival, right?
Yeah, Reading Festival.
Festival. And what other bands was that? When you played with the Sex Pistols, you originally met them, right?
No, we were on with between Sham 69 and the Jam.
Wow.
And I think everybody.
And what year was this? What year was this?
This was Reading, 1979.
Okay.
Somebody sent me a poster.
And then the world took a turn because all of a sudden you went from the 70s and then the 80s hit. And everything changed in the 80s. The whole music scene and everything just took on a completely different direction. And so you did 8 studio albums, right? You guys put out 8 albums to date.
Well, we had one album with Island, what we did at Island. And then I have released a number of albums since then. So, I mean, I came to America, I figured, when I was in England, when at the end of my time in England, it had gone to all these, synth bands, which, I wasn't really.
It's called a synth band. It's called a synth band.
Synthesizer rock bands. Like, there was a bunch of them.
Keyboards, the keyboards,
good.
Right? The synthesizers, yeah.
But
and if you were a true punk rocker, there was a whole resistance to the kind of music that was coming out back then. In the 80s and stuff. Yes, I remember. I don't want to name names because I don't want to, but go ahead.
We're studiously avoiding that bit.
Right, but there was Boy George did it, and then I think somebody got uncovered. I mean, there was a lot of it going on back then, and that was especially if you were from the punk movement, because everything was about finger up to authority and being a fake.
It was very, very tough and masculine, I guess. But the 80s became quite fey, and lots of floppy shirts. And
when did you come over to the USA, David? Was that in the 80s or in the 80s?
It was in 83.
What made you want to leave London? London is my favorite city in the whole world. I love the UK. And when I go to London, I wind up staying there for I go for a week. I stay for 3 months because I just love London. And I think to myself, if I was going to be from anywhere else, it's really...
London's magic.
It's magic. It's magical in London.
But you can use it up.
Yeah. And it can use you up, I guess.
And I used it up, and it used me up, and and plus also, if I'd had any sense, I would have, because the band hit the rocks, all the other guys went off, and they were playing, world tours with other bands. But when you're the singer and the songwriter, you're stuck with right back at the beginning, and so. I just thought, sod this for a game of conkers, and I came to America, and if I'd been smart, I would have gone to Southern California and started another band, because we would have been playing the Automatic set. We still would have been years ahead of the scene, but I kind of you learn a little. And a little knowledge is dangerous. And I'd hit that point. It's where you go into the sophomore slump.
The sophomore slump.
Yeah, you know a little bit about it, but you don't know enough to really make it work for you. Plus, also, it was a thing where everyone's, when you're very young and all 1 month everybody's kissing your butt, and the next month everyone's kicking it.
Yeah,
it's a tough lesson to learn,
especially in the music, anywhere in the music entertainment industry or anything. And when you're a rebel, I think, truth be told, about anybody who is a rebel, underneath it all, we are like these big sensitive. That's why it makes us want to be like all this, bravado and the whole thing. But underneath it all, it really does hurt to get kicked in the pants. And it was a rough business in the 80s. It changed rapidly. I remember that. And you were either on top or you were on the bottom. But, when you were on the bottom, it could hurt.
Yeah, and that's part of the game.
But you just gathered up a bunch of new players and then continued with the Automatics. I know that. But how do you feel that the Automatics distinctively influenced the punk rock scene that was different from the other bands of that actual day, which was like the Sex Pistols and, the Damned and all these guys, the Ramones? What do you think, if you could say, I think we brought this one distinctive, or anything at all? Anything?
Yeah. Okay, that's a good question. And, and honestly, I didn't know that we had. But, when I went over to, to tour Japan in 2000, I discovered, a whole new generation of kids who were really into the Automatics music, and you'd see, they knew every word. And I had no idea. And at the end of the tour, when everybody was, because I played with a pickup band, so I just went there on my Todd and picked up Fifi, Fink, Massa, and Bruce, Japanese players, and they were really good. We couldn't speak much because I don't speak much Japanese, but so.
Uno konnichiwa.
Yeah, I can get
Uno konnichiwa. I know how to
mean?
That's my Japanese. It's good
Yeah.
evening, good day to you, I believe, isn't it?
And
How
by
are
the time
you? How are you? Nice day, or something like that. I learned it in the 5th grade.
That's
Japanese
pretty impressive.
class. But I always carried it with me because you never know when you need to speak a little Japanese.
Never know.
Right? And I always try to respect other cultures by knowing just a little bit of every language so that if I need to be able to at least say hello or greet somebody, I can do that.
Yeah, it's good manners.
Right?
Good manners.
It's good. It is.
But, at the end of the tour, we went on a celebratory, the booker took us on a celebratory, dinner. And of course, everybody proceeded to get completely, 4 sheets to the wind, except for me, because I don't do that anymore. But so I took
Was it
Fifi.
difficult to continue playing in the band and coming off with all of that energy? Because the punk rock energy can be very aggressive. Was it difficult to continue while everybody's just partying and stuff, or no?
No, not for me anymore. It was a jump to begin with. I wasn't sure if I could still do it, but it all came back to me. I mean, all that
It's
stuff.
like riding a bicycle, right? It's just the way.
Well, it's a muscle memory. It because how it is in a good band is this big engine starts up behind you, and you become this marionette because. The muscle memory, you remember, here I swing my arm, there I go, and all the things that you did, it's all in there if you get out of your own way and let it come.
And stop numbing yourself. I remember that for me, the change is that I could actually experience like the music much deeper on a much deeper level with connecting to my body because there wasn't anything numbing that anymore. But I do want to ask you, because we have some of your music and we definitely want to be able to share some of the music with the fans. We've got actually one of his newer songs in the house today. But before we go there, apparently Steve Jones, the guitarist for the Sex Pistols, was featured on one of your tracks, at least one of your tracks, that was called Trash. How was it collaborating with Steve Jones, with Jonesy? And was there any competition or gossip or anything?
Hey, nobody's going to compete with the Sex Pistols. That brand of celebrity only comes around, once a generation, I think.
Right.
But no. I mean, I asked him. I paid him. He came. He was fantastic.
He is a great guitar player. I did see them with my friend Sharon Mitchell several years ago. They played, I think it was the Hollywood Bowl. You might have even been there. That might have been where I originally met you, David, at the Sex Pistols concert. And I just was wondering, because I know that, sometimes people get typecast and they're a certain persona and they can't fit into a different one. So I was just wondering, but I know that the music you guys did together was amazing. Trash was great. And,
Yeah, we did a couple of other ones too, which I think were also Peace on Earth, British Beat. Steve the interesting thing is like most guitarists, they have a sound. They want certain kind of guitar and a certain kind of amp and a certain kind of treatment. And you can give Steve anything hooked into anything else, and he will still sound like Steve Jones.
Well, that's good, though. That can be good if you want that kind of thing going on.
It's easy to overlook people like that, because they're not doing all these flash solos so much, But Steve has the steadiest right hand in the business.
Even to this day. So
yeah, he's very
let's talk about
steady.
the song that you have chosen for our listeners today. And the truth is that I would have gone right to myself personally, and that's my go-to, is old school punk rock. It's how I was raised out in Orange County, that old, heavy, aggressive, everything we talked about, When the Tanks Roll Over Poland Again fits into. But the song that you chose for us today, and before we close today, I want to mention the song that he did about the Ukrainian war, which I love more than anything. But it shows how your music has evolved. And the song that you chose, which is Britannia, go ahead, set it up for us, David.
Okay, Britannia.
Yeah,
okay.
Britannia, 62,
okay,
right?
the opening track, Yeah, I mean, if you're still doing the same music in the same way after 40 years of being in music, you've got to ask yourself what the hell you've done with the last 40 years. I don't particularly, I'll go out and I'll play, When the Tanks Are at the end of the set or something like that. But I want to do new stuff. I want to do stuff like, and it seems to be paying off, because my last two records went to #1 in the Heritage chart, which is a big deal because it goes out to 86 countries with Mike Reed, and who's a sort of celebrity DJ in England, Cold Steel Serenade actually just fell short. It went to #2. I
love Cold Steel Serenade, but let's give our listeners, before we go any further, a little taste of the song that David chose, because he wants you to hear what the music is about today. And here we go. Are you ready for us, Tony? Let's take it. Britannia, 62.
Country lane, the birds fly as she's passing through, faster than a bullet train. Matte black and shiny new, stand back, I'm coming through. On my Bombville 62. Feel her engines open up in that sweet, deep-throated roar. She always gives you what you need, and maybe then a little more. The road goes by the time it flew, like nothing else I ever did their work and chopped the chain from off the rail. Just as the camera cuts down, somebody else was leaving town.
That's the Automatics, Britannia 62. I love the song. The song is beautiful, and you can see the
Thank you.
evolution of you. I can see you in that song, David.
Well, it's actually Bonneville 62.
Oh,
and everyone in
Bonneville. Oh,
America-
sorry. I called it Britannia.
No, it's fine. But you know, Bonneville is a Triumph motorbike in England.
Uh-huh.
It's a car in America.
Oh,
But,
okay.
So this is a love song to a motorbike that that ends up getting stolen.
This is your motorbike. This is your motorbike, David.
Yep. And the bolt cutters did their work.
So,
And,
David, with all the hullabaloo that's going on right now around the Sex Pistols' new biopic that's out on Hulu, I know that you have been courted, and we've discussed this, about doing a biopic on the Automatics, and I would love to see a biopic done on you and the Automatics. If this was to happen, who would you like to play you as an actor? Who do you think you'd like to see play you?
This has actually become a quite real question, because there is a biopic actually, and they've got a writer on it. Is with Universal Music and also with Landline, which is quite a big company. It was Amy Bauer's company who was head of production at Universal. So who to play me? Well, I will tell you this, that I am quite a low man on this particular totem pole. You know, after you've signed the life rights away, you know, it's not entirely in your hands anymore.
Who would you see as an actor that could play?
Brad Pitt or Tom
Would
Cruise?
you like Brad? I could see Brad Pitt playing a young David Philp, don't you think? I think he'd be great at that. Or the one that was just on the Barbie movie, Ryan Gosling.
Yes.
He would be good at it too.
Yeah, I like all that. I admire all those guys, and you know, it's. I think that they're concentrating pretty much on the interview that I did when I came back from the first Japanese tour with Ira Glass for This American Life, and that's what they've optioned. So I imagine they're going to be.
So do we have any? Do we have any dates yet? Any in production lines? Are we still? Are we still? You never know. You know, all of these things are coming back and they're being resurrected, and all these people that are just. They thought their career was over, and then all of a sudden, here they are once again. What is up for the future of the Automatics now? Are you doing any shows? Are you got any show dates to announce here for your fans? And where can your fans go to get the music and get your merch?
Well, the Automatics, the last album is Star Maps of the Underworld. It was released last November. We're still promoting that. And then the ones, Britannia is another album that's now I think was played as the classic album of the day on the Drive show in England, and also Jukebox of Human Sorrow, which again, you know, they're all on Spotify.
I love the name. I love the name of that album.
Yeah,
definitely.
And and then before Star Maps, there was a Grand Swan Dive into the Void, and I think we had three.
You doing anything out at the Canyon Club anytime soon? I know that we just had somebody on the show, and they said that the Canyon Club was back, and they were booking dates and stuff like that again. So I was hoping, we could come and see you live.
I don't have the following that I feel I deserve in America.
Well, you have.
That's
you,
changing. It's growing
You
fast.
have me, and you definitely have Joe Williamson. I will tell you
Well,
that.
Joe, you're a saintly man. I just need another 1,000.
Joe's. Oh,
Joes,
and by the way,
and
Joe's
I'm in
opening.
business.
He'd love to come out and pick up a guitar. I don't know. I can't guarantee. He's going to be a Jonesy for you, but you never know. You know,
Well,
he's
just today, I was
he's
talking
right,
with,
but you could definitely have some fun. And you know, David, I don't know if you're willing to talk about it or not, but I know that you have battled cancer and that you have had some trials in your life. Are you willing to talk about it so that people can?
Yeah. I mean, my life's an open book. I've screwed up plenty of times.
Well, you are a cancer survivor, am I correct?
4 times over. I've had four cancer surgeries, and
God bless you.
But now I'm scheduled to live forever.
You're scheduled. I like that too, because you know Joe Williamson is all over here getting all excited about the aspect of, you know, becoming a new Automatics. We just had another band, the Bullet Boys, on the show, and they had just the whole band walked out in a day, and then they resurrected an entirely new band. So you never know what tomorrow is going to bring. And I'm so happy to hear that you're doing well with your health today, and that I didn't know that there were so many bouts with cancer, and I'm so glad. So you're doing well now? So your fans can look forward.
Yeah. It was, what can you say about cancer? I mean, people say, fuck cancer and everything. No.
But you look amazing, David. You look amazing. I mean, I haven't seen you for several years, and you have not changed a bit. You look wonderful, and I'm happy to see that. Yeah.
Well, we both defy the odds.
Right? You have to just, the one thing in life that makes us is to just the resiliency of just to keep on keeping on. And, the whole world's going through the ringer, and, but we need that. Yeah. I love the music, and the song that you did about Ukraine, Cold Steel Serenade. I happened to catch my publicist was putting together the PR, and then she found it and added it and said, "Oh, you've got to check this out." I hadn't heard it yet. And then when I saw the music video that you did for it, it really touched my heart, because I've just been so involved and horrified. And I never, ever, ever thought that Vladimir Putin, the biggest POS on earth, as far as I'm concerned, would ever wind up on my blog. Because I was like, he's on the blog. Kill him. Get rid of him. And she goes, no, it's the Automatic single. You got to listen to it. So thank God.
I love the single. Yeah. It's fantastic.
Right?
Yeah. Thank you. The video is actually by Dawn Parry. And it was interesting because I wrote it, and then 9 days later, I released it. I've never had that shorter period of writing it, recording it, doing it up, mixing it.
It's a lovely little thing. I love it.
Well, thank you.
And I thought you captured Ukraine and the whole essence of what's going on because it's so brutal that the way you did it with the people, and there's one moment for me that really touched me, where there's like a little boy who's like trying to reach out, and then you see
there's so many heartbreaking images,
and that's just what's going on now. But I just wish, I thought it would have been over by now. So what's your social media handles, David, so that the fans can all continue to follow you and support the Automatics and David Philp?
Yes, Instagram is at the Automatics. We're up on Facebook, the Automatics, and also David Philp, and the Automatics on Twitter, and then www.theautomatics.co.uk.
And the other thing you need to do is you need to put up a special, like a web page or something to the people that you're negotiating to get that biopic up, and let all the Automatics fans, because I know I'll be on, and Joe Williamson will be on it every day. Just vote. Do you want the Automatics biopic to happen now? Yes, no, and we'll just go on there. We'll just keep voting, and we'll just keep ringing and bugging these people, and we will get that thing done.
Yeah, well, bless you. It's probably I should talk to the guys at Landline and Universal, because they may feel that's a little premature yet, because they're still writing the script. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely happening. I had lunch with them on Tuesday. We were chatting away for 2.5 hours, and the contract signed. Don't have the money yet.
We're coming out of a pandemic, everybody.
Well,
give it a moment, right?
Film is even worse than rock and roll in terms of how long you actually wait for the money.
And then once they start it, then they have to like get it shot, and then the whole thing. And that can take years. I've been working on a project from, I went to Vegas for a year and worked on a project in the pandemic, and it's still the same thing is going on. But, we just got to keep on keeping on, and you're definitely one of those people that do that. And I just want to thank you for joining the show today. Is there anything that we missed that you want your fans to know? Anything?
Well, I'm just going to finish up what Fifi told me after the closing dinner on the tour in Japan of 2000. I went to him, I said, look, Fifi, why do Japanese kids like us so much? I mean, there's other bands, that were around that were maybe bigger than we were in that kind of, and I mentioned some names, and he said, because the surviving strain, you are the surviving strain of punk rock. And if you draw the line back from Green Day, it starts at the Automatics.
You know what, David? I absolutely agree with that, and I know that Joe Williamson does too. That was an amazing close for all of this. Guess what, guys? Thank you for joining us tonight. That's all the time we have for tonight's show. Special thanks to UK punk rock legend David Philp. Always a legend for us. And David, good luck and good fortune with all your future music endeavors and life endeavors. And we can't wait to come back into the studio and get you in here live when we're out of all of this other pandemic stuff. Follow us, guys, at Rock and Sexy U, Rock and Sexy UnCensored.com. Thank you to Joe Williamson Management for co-hosting the show tonight, and all of our listeners for your love, loyalty, and support. Join us next week, guys. Grammy Award music producer Ronnie King from Ronnie King Music will be live in the studio with us, and we look forward to seeing you then. Have a wonderful week, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to Amber Lynn's Rockin' Sexy Uncensored, available on rockinsexyuncensored.com. Don't forget to hit us up on all your favorite social media links, and tune in next week for another amazing episode of Rockin' Sexy